Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, Max Barr here to discuss SEC basketball this coming Saturday. This is the third round of SEC on SEC games. We've got four of them to preview: Vandy at Ole Miss, Missouri, South Carolina, Florida, Arkansas, and Auburn, LSU. Before we get there, reminding you, this video is sponsored by our friends at BetOnline. With NFL playoffs right around the corner and the NBA season in full swing, BetOnline has you covered with all the up-to-the-second odds, news, and scores, with additional odds, lines, trends, and info on both desktop and mobile. You can access the world's best wagering information anytime. Head there today. Get in on the action. See all the updated odds. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, that is BLEAV, to get your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. We will start in Oxford, Mississippi. Ole Miss comes off a big win against Florida, in which the Rebels look very impressive. Vanderbilt comes off a loss at LSU. You can catch this game on the SEC Network, noon Central. We do not have lines as we speak, but what we always do is average some computers, try to use that to give you an idea of where this thing is headed. BPI, Bart Torvik, Ken Pomeroy average tell you Ole Miss is about a 12.5 to 13-point favorite with an 88% chance of winning. All right, our resident Ole Miss guy, Max, you get first word on this. The Rebels looked awfully good on both ends of the floor, scoring over 100 points against Florida. Jamarian Sharp sets a school blocks record in 17 minutes. Vandy was just kind of what we expected in Baton Rouge. Give me your initial thoughts on this game.
Yeah, interesting one, because this is a Vandy team that you can't take lightly. And we've seen that against Memphis, against Alabama. This is a team that's scrappy. Stackhouse is going to run some good stuff and try to keep them in the game as much as they can. And I don't want Ole Miss to take Vandy lightly here, coming off of probably the best win of the season. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking for an Ole Miss fan, because you're like, man, we really need our guys to get up for this one, because Vandy has proven they can hang around. Looking at some numbers, Vanderbilt is quietly challenging Texas A&M for worst shooting team in the conference. They're about 3% better at 29%, but still, they only have two guys in double-digit threes that are shooting north of 30%, and that's Camateros and Rivera Torres. Both Lawrence and Mannion are having a bit of a down shooting year so far, but law of averages, I bet Lawrence starts shooting a little bit better too. But that plays right into the strength of the Ole Miss defense, right, with that rim protection. So if Vandy is still not making shots from outside, it's probably going to be a long night for them, as it would be for anyone with how Jamarian Sharp just played. I think that the Ole Miss backcourt has a good matchup here. If you look at Vandy's opponents, Jalen Cook went for 28, Jordan Wright went for 15 against Vandy, and then against Alabama, Sears for 21, Griffin for 16. The top three guys on Ole Miss in usage rates are Juju Murray, Matt Morrell, and Flanagan. So if that's any indication on what type of night they're going to have, not even mentioning Jamin Brakefield, it's a bad matchup here for Vandy. And then the biggest Ole Miss Achilles heel is their allowance of offensive rebounds. I mean, they just played a great game against Florida and gave up 26 offensive rebounds. That's crazy numbers. But Vandy doesn't offensive rebound too much. You might see Lang get in there and grab a few offensive boards, but that's not really how they've been staying in games. So it's interesting. You can look at any matchup with Vanderbilt and talk about the numbers and how the other team's going to look better, but I'm a little bit nervous here, because I think that Ole Miss might just not sleepwalk into this game, but might take them a little bit lightly coming off this one. What feelings are you getting here, Blake?
Well, I mean, look, I think you look at this game, and to me, this is more about what are you going to get from Vanderbilt than it is about Ole Miss, because we just saw what you can get from Ole Miss if they're playing well. But I mean, it's worth noting, all the double-digit spreads and potential lines. Again, I'm not doing this from a betting standpoint, but I mean, Vanderbilt, aside from the Dartmouth win, their last 4 losses have been by 8 points or less, and so it's just, yeah. I mean, they didn't play great at LSU, but they still found a way to make it, close at the end, and had their chances against Alabama, had their chances against Memphis. Then you go to the Western Carolina game, although I think that's where the split happened. I think they just, started playing significantly better after that. And just by the way, just to point out, Western Carolina 14-2. So I don't want to look back at that one and
They're not
Vanderbilt
bad
won
at
the
all.
game. Yes, but that's a pretty good team that Justin Gray has there. So
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think if you look at it from that standpoint, I mean, it just seems to be that just like they have in recent years, they're figuring out a way to put themselves in a position to at least have a chance down the stretch. Can they do it again here? Matchup wise, this one feels more difficult than even playing Alabama at home, than playing LSU on the road. I just think it's the size, it's the 3-point shooting of Ole Miss. We talked about how that's been such a big difference, and this is just, again, this is an experienced team with a Jamarian Sharp who's going to really make things difficult, I think. And Vanderbilt, if they're going to rely on the 3, the numbers just aren't there to support the fact that they're going to shoot it well. So, I mean, they're shooting 29%. So, yeah, I think that's the issue I have here with Vanderbilt is finding a path offensively to making this happen because, again, the defensive numbers are still, kind of not the best either. So,
Yeah, Blake, you make a good point on Sharp and Cisse. Vanderbilt just hasn't played a team like that. I mean, most teams haven't. We cite computer numbers. The computers aren't big on Ole Miss. And, of course, the reason for that, as we've said time and time again, Ole Miss hasn't had its full complement of players. Ole Miss came slowly out of the gate, played to the level of its competition, won some games against very, very bad teams that maybe it shouldn't have won. Maybe got a little lucky to win. It won them, but the computers factor that in. So I don't know that the computers are an accurate reflection of what Ole Miss is. On the other hand, even with that, there's still a 12.5 point favorite. Vanderbilt has a habit of playing teams close. It's been the case throughout Jerry Stackhouse's tenure. Sometimes they will be down 15 or 20 points. You look up in the game, it's 10 points, but they're not very good. They're getting better. They're still not very good. Give me Ole Miss to win. If you're betting on this game, I probably wouldn't, given Vanderbilt's history and the fact Ole Miss is coming off a big win. But we're all Rebels to win here, right?
Yep, I'm glad you mentioned that, Chris. That betting thing, real quick. I'm picking Ole Miss to win here, but with the motivation coming off of a huge win like that and Vanderbilt's history of making things scrappy and close, I would not lay any points here on this game. But I'll take Ole Miss to win, but a little bit nervous.
Yeah, Ole Miss, just a tough matchup. So
next up, let's see. We've got Missouri and South Carolina. Missouri hosting this one. Computers have Missouri as about a 2-point favorite in this one. The graphic I sent you guys had an error in it, so I've corrected it on the fly. Missouri, I would presume, would be maybe a 55-60% probability winner in this one. That game, 2:30 Central on the SEC Network. Missouri's not been playing well. South Carolina got thrashed the other night, but has mostly played well. Blake, I'll start with you on this one and breaking it down.
No, thanks. This is one of those games I want no part of. I have no idea what we're gonna get in this game. So again, if you guys think we know all, trust me, I'm telling you, I don't when it comes to this game, because Max may have a better feel than I do, but man, this is like, we want to talk about ranking the games. We would bet I don't know. We got one coming up here in a second that I may even put higher than that based on where those two teams are. But if South Carolina had not had the performance they had at Alabama, I'd probably feel pretty good about kind of maybe stacking things in their favor here. But, again, too, part of that's just Alabama. Part of that's just a team that comes out and hit 15 threes, and there's nothing you can do about it, especially when you only hit 5 of your own. I mean, Max, I don't know what the under is in this one. We don't, but I'd probably take it. It seems to me that this is going to be one of those games where someone's going to have player wise, like someone's just going to step up and have a huge game here. And I think, the expectation is that, okay, you know what you're going to get from Sean East, you know what you're going to get from Michi Johnson. We talked about South Carolina's Big Four. We talked about kind of the trending upward usage of Tamar Bates and those kind of things. But I think it's one of those games where a player just comes out of nowhere and has a big game in this one. But I look statistically and there's, outside of just the fact that I think South Carolina's just a better rebounding team. And I think, we're going to say that a lot about teams that play Missouri this year. Missouri, for the second straight year, really, I mean, it's just, they're going to allow a lot of offensive rebounds. And I feel like it's, the numbers kind of support that. So I'm going to turn this from the Max. I don't have a great feel for this game. I feel like it's one where you've got two teams that South Carolina has played better to this point, but it's a road game in the SEC. And I feel like this is you want to talk about a must-win spot for Missouri. I mean, realistically, they lose this game. I mean, there is a really good chance you're staring down the possibility of an 0-7 start in the league, because after this, they're at Alabama, they're home against Florida, at A&M, at South Carolina. And they're going to be the underdogs, I would say, in all of those games, especially if they lose this one. So even if they don't, they're probably going to be an underdog in all those games. So I don't know. I mean, maybe just that pressure on Missouri here helps them. Dennis Gates puts them in the right position and kind of understanding the magnitude of this one, because if you don't win this one, again, it's going to be tricky. But I think they're going to have to rebound, and they're going to probably want to do what maybe Alabama tried to. They just force South Carolina to shoot the three. But again, they've not been bad at it. They're 34% for the SEC. That's pretty good. So this is a tricky one to me.
I've got a word here before we go any further. Sometimes the numbers on these things change a little bit overnight, and sometimes the idiot in charge makes a mistake in what he puts in what column. So let me give you the updated stuff. This is wild. BPI has Missouri as a 3.1 point favorite. Bart Torvik has South Carolina as a 1.8 point favorite. If you want to go to the decimal. Which I know we all do.
Boy, I love those decimals.
I know how much you love this, Blake. And Ken Pomeroy has Ole Miss as a 1 point. Has Missouri as a 1 point underdog. So factoring all that in, averaging it up, Missouri is an underdog by 2 of the 3, but a 0.1 point favorite once you average them. When you take the victory probabilities, Missouri is about a 51.8 point favorite, but it is a 43% victory probability favorite, according to Torvik, 50-50 in Ken Pom, and 62.5 in BPI. So the computers are completely, I know, the point is computers are completely confused about this one too.
Yeah, computers have no clue.
Well, Blake wants to kick me off the broadcast right now because he hates
no clue. After all those numbers, you just flip. Here's what we should do. Here's what we should do for this game. I'm going to walk over here and grab a coin. All right. And we're going to take this coin and we're going to flip it. And whatever, heads or tails, we're going to say South Carolina's heads, Missouri's tails. All right.
Well, just hold on a second, because I like a pick in this one.
Oh,
I like
boy.
a side. I like
here
a side. Hear me out. Hear me out. South Carolina has played 3 true road games this year. Just 3 true road games. They lost at Clemson by 5. They beat East Carolina in a game where East Carolina was up by 3 with 4 minutes left. And then they just got blown out by Alabama. It's only 3 road games that South Carolina has played. So, have they been outperforming expectation from what we thought? Yeah, but they've not been good on the road. They just have not. In that Clemson game, we thought it was a huge win at the time. And while, yeah, that is a big win to go into Clemson and win that game. Clemson's kind of fallen apart here. They've lost 4 of their last 6 with only the 2 wins coming against Queens and Radford. So is that Clemson win as huge as we thought it's turning out? It's a little bit less than we thought it was. If you've watched every Missouri press conference like I have, Noah Carter gets asked questions every time. They put Noah Carter up there. And when I tell you, you would not know Missouri's losing games by the way Noah Carter is talking. It's it's encouraging. He comes away each game with, hey, we just went into Rupp and we went 0 for 10 in our last 10 3-point attempts. We almost covered the spread and we hung with them the whole time. Whereas you look at some other teams in the SEC, I don't want to take any shots here at other teams, but some teams have looked like they've quit in games. This Missouri team hasn't done that, and they've been shorthanded and they've been fighting. So I think this is a Missouri team that's led by seniors with their back against the wall, knowing they need a win, and that's a dangerous team. South Carolina likes to play extremely slow and play in that half court, but Coach Calipari just said in his post-game press conference, we couldn't run any offense. We can't run anything against Missouri because they play so random and switch so much. And that's not something you want to hear for a South Carolina team that sticks to their half-court offense like glue. So if I'm being honest, I think I was on Missouri before the Georgia game. Georgia comes out and shoots the lights out and plays with a lead the whole game, makes some really timely shots. I like Missouri here. I think they got their back against the wall and are gonna play with everything they got. They can't afford to lose this one. I like Missouri here.
Here's what's going to happen, and I knew this ahead of time. I could hear you. I could feel the wheels spinning in your head. You were going to pick Missouri. You've talked me into it. And Blake, because he is the contrarian and because he did this all last year, because Dennis Gates is his client, he is going to pick South Carolina. Is his anti-Missouri jinx, unless, just being the contrarian because I just said that, he picks Missouri to spite me. So, Blake, it's your turn with all that.
Well, is this show turned into predicting the predictions now? Like, are we
Yes,
predicting everyone's predictions? South Carolina fans, listen, I made you one of my bold predictions. I picked you to make the NCAA tournament. I said, I think you can get there. And look, the Alabama game was brutal. But again, I still think that was way more about Alabama making that many threes and South Carolina just couldn't hit shots. Like, let's call it what it is. Max brings up a good point about the games, true road games, that is, and not really playing that well this season. But Missouri fans, it's time. It's time to get this thing going in the right direction. And to do that, we must return to what worked. If it's not broke, you don't fix it. Isn't that right? I would say if it ain't broke, but I like to use part of good grammar in that sentence somewhere. So it's time, Missouri fans. The anti-jinx must return. We must try this one more time. This is the last stand. If it doesn't work here, then we're going to have to throw this out the window. So I'm going to take South Carolina in this game. And again, I'm doing this for Missouri fans, but like I said, I cannot. Max is way more confident than I am about this pick. And I don't have a great feel about this one either way. Like Chris said, the computers are confused. And anytime those faithful computers are confused, I am going to also be confused. So give me the Gamecocks in this one.
By the way, BPI has been the one that's just been off everybody else. Bark Torvik and Ken Pomeroy are usually within about a point of each other, and I think they come at it the same way. BPI is the one that's just been all over the place. It doesn't like Kentucky, and just a footnote for you as we explain what we're looking at. Okay, Arkansas and Florida.
Oh,
boy, neither team is happy about the way they have been playing, at least last time out. Arkansas, we have no words for you anymore. Florida looked awful. That might have had a little bit more to do with Ole Miss. You can catch this one 3 Saturday, 3 Central on ESPN. Boy, the computers are really not liking Arkansas. Neither are our eyes. Florida is, let's see, about a 10-point favorite, according to the computers, with about an 80% chance to win. Blake, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are two desperation mode teams here. This is game 3 conference play, but this feels like must win for both. Like, there's time to turn it around, and we say that, right? I mean, Arkansas started 1-5 last year, 0-3 the year before that, 2-4 the year before that in SEC play. So, yes, but as we continue to say, this feels different. This is just a different scenario this year based on what we've seen to this point. the Gators, had their chances against Kentucky, and I just thought, boy, you talk about mindset. If you win that Kentucky game, how different it is. Even if you lose at Ole Miss, your mindset's a little different right now. And here's where things get interesting for Florida. After this, they go to Tennessee next Tuesday. So again, the pressure is on. And hey, when the pressure's on, one of these teams has fared a little bit better than the other this season. Even though, Florida lost that game to Kentucky, they were right there. They had their chance, and that was in Gainesville. And so I look at this here again, and I feel like it's the same scenario. Florida's guards have been better than Arkansas's guards this year. And, to me, the big men have also probably been a little more consistent at times for Florida as well. And so, yeah, I'm going to be honest. I look at this game and there's not a lot I feel great about when it comes to Arkansas, because it's not just the way they've lost the last couple games. It's just, I feel like Florida is one of these teams that, from a matchup standpoint, it feels like a pretty tough matchup here, just based on how good this guard group is for Florida. And that's the thing we talked about with Arkansas, is that they've just been inconsistent there. Whether it's the turnovers, whether it's just the inconsistency shooting the ball, they go 3 of 21, as we said, against Georgia from 3. That's it, guys. Arkansas is 10 of 45 from 3 in their last 2 games. The shooting consistently has just not been there the way we thought it could be. And honestly, when you look at Arkansas's performances away from home this season, it has been ugly. I mean, the Stanford game they won, that's in neutral court game, right? But as we talked about back then, they didn't play well in that game. Memphis, neutral court game, lost. North Carolina, neutral court game, lost. Oklahoma, that ended up being a 9-point game, and I'm gonna be honest, that felt like worse than 9 points, based on thinking back to that game. And then, of course, the Georgia game. And so it's like, I think there's a lot in Florida's favor here, but you know what? This could be like the A&M setup against Kentucky, where it feels like everything's sort of swinging one way, you go back the other. But the difference is, this is not in Bud Walton, which, unfortunately, we can't even count on that anymore based on what we saw against Auburn. So,
yeah, Blake, I'm going to expand on those 3-point numbers that you mentioned real quick. In those 6 games away from home, you just listed them off. Their total 3-point numbers in 6 games away from home is 25 of 108. They're shooting 23% as a team. I'm just going to real quick run through their 3-point numbers in their 6 games away from home. 3 of 21, 4 of 18, 5 of 17, 7 of 18. That's their best one. 5 of 19, 5 of 15. They have only 1 game away from home where they've made more than 5 threes. That's brutal. That's brutal. You're not going to win on the road doing that often. This is a humiliation game rebound for Florida. And we just saw what Ole Miss responded with after they got humiliated. The teams, they play for pride after a game like that. They play, to really save the name on their jersey rather than the name on the back. And I think we're going to see that here with Florida. Another thing that is just, kind of getting blown out a little bit is, this Florida game against Ole Miss was 40-44 at halftime. It was a 4-point game going into half. It was anyone's game coming, and then coming out of halftime, Ole Miss makes almost every shot they take. I rewatched that second half last night, and I think Alan Flanagan makes 3 or 4 tough contested turnaround baseline mid-range jumpers. Jamin Brakefield hits a few threes, and it just snowballs out of control. But that game was neck and neck for the whole first half. And the things that you can control, defense and rebounding, one of them was terrible, the defense, but the rebounding was incredible, like it has been. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. Bruce Pearl said after, it wasn't after the game. It was right before the Texas A&M game. Bruce Pearl was asked about the Texas A&M rebounding because Auburn out-rebounded Arkansas by 14. He said, all we had to do was put a body on an Arkansas big and they were boxed out. So that's all we had to do. We just had to put a body on them and they were boxed out. And then speaking of Texas A&M, how they were going to fight through everything, you have to box them out 3 times in one possession. and that this Florida team is gonna have the same success as Auburn did. I don't see how Arkansas is gonna rebound any better. So I just think this is a good matchup here for Florida at home. They came a possession away from beating Kentucky. I mean, that was last week. Now I feel like we've completely forgotten that. So I really like Florida in this bounce back spot coming off in a humiliating game. I think they're going to be playing their hearts out.
Before the season, I went through everybody's roster with a fine-tooth comb, what they did last year, how they were regarded out of high school, just about everything that you could think of. And I looked at Arkansas's roster and said, oh boy, I know people have the shooting concerns, but boy, this team is talented, and boy, it played a lot of basketball last year. And boy, does it have a coach in Eric Musselman who has been able to figure this out in the transfer portal era and weave it together and have a team playing its best ball from mid-January on. You guys know I'm the biggest stat head of this group, but I've also covered teams. And when there is a huge disconnect between what a team should be and what a team is, to throw the stats out the window, because the stats are no longer the point. The analytics are no longer the point. None of that stuff matters. What you know intuitively is something has gone horribly wrong that has nothing to do with the basketball skill. Either the players hate the coach, or the locker room hates each other, or something along those lines. For the record, I don't know what Arkansas's problem is. Don't really care at this point. Could probably find out. I'm not an insider in that program, although I could go and ask some people. But I just know intuitively by looking at it and seeing the huge disconnect between what this team could be and what this team is. And I know something's wrong. Throw out the stats, except for the ones that tell you Florida's going to win this game double digits. Arkansas, I'm over you. I'm out on you.
Yeah. It's like a breakup. It's like a breakup letter.
We love your fans. I'm breaking up with you until you change your ways and give me something to love.
Wow. There's a clip. Chris breaking up with the Arkansas Razorbacks live here on Southeastern. If that doesn't make you want to hit that subscribe button, I don't know what does. You may make the Arkansas fans want to unsubscribe. I think they broke up a while ago.
They did. They're there with me.
Yeah, I'm not going to go, into writing the letter, but yeah, I'm picking Florida here. For every reason I said earlier, for the reasons Max listed, for the reasons you listed, there's just a lot of things that I think Max brought up. The thing that I was going to get back to was I think a lot of people just jumped off the Florida bandwagon after they lost at Ole Miss, while forgetting that, again, they had every chance in the world to beat Kentucky and probably should have. So yeah, they're back at home here. They played really well at home this season, and yeah, there's no momentum for Arkansas right now. So give me the Gators.
Gators.
All right. I'm breaking up with Arkansas because I think I'd like to date Auburn. Boy, the more I like this team, the more I watch it, the more I like it.
Really getting around here, Chris.
I am. There were remarks coming to mind, and the better judgment element of my head is saying, let's keep those to yourself. And so I will.
At least I get into a relationship with one team per season, okay? The Missouri Tigers last year, the Alabama Crimson Tide this year. Let's continue on.
This is like, you have one of those days you just, I'm no longer single, so I'm not open to this, but you walk in, you don't know what the day's going to hold, and then you run into a girl. Like, boy, that wasn't what I had in mind, falling in love with, but boy,
is that the Auburn Tigers for you right now?
That's the Auburn Tigers.
It's getting to be Auburn.
Earl. Okay, well, there you go. So,
and the analytics here are kind of with me. You average BPI, Bart Torvik and Ken Palm, and they like Auburn in this game by about 16.5 points. They give Auburn a 93% probability to win. Gentlemen, we can analyze this all we want. Auburn's going to win the game. Now it's your turn.
Blake, you start with this one.
I didn't know how to follow up this all this love talk. We're a month away from Valentine's Day, and all this love conversation going on here. I love the way Auburn's been playing. Again, we talked about just a team that doesn't really have any weaknesses, and I'm just going to keep hitting on that until they give us a reason to find one, because right now I don't see one.
And You're hitting on Auburn?
Well, listen, when you're dating Alabama
I
and you
just
start
named
hitting on
Auburn.
Auburn, oh my, that's
Oh, that's
there's some
dangerous.
things you don't do, and that is that. But as we know, yeah, Alabama and Auburn fans, it's been an interesting. It's just let's talk about the game. This gonna go off the rails here. It already has, but when Chris started doing Shakespeare over there, yeah, I mean, you look at, I think just the way this game sets up. Again, it's Auburn at home. We've seen LSU go to Texas A&M and play well, but this is just a different beast here. And it's just, you look at the way Auburn defends. I think that's the biggest thing for me in this game is just, as we said, LSU is a much improved defensive team, but the way Auburn defends, even with Jalen Cook, who did Jalen Jones play for? Why did that come to my mind? Is he an SEC player at one point? We'll figure that out. Google that, Max.
On it.
Even with him back in the mix, again, we talked about how improved LSU is offensively, but I just think they have, they still have more limitations. And again, just seeing how much Auburn has changed its defense so dramatically since the first of the year and how they're defending against teams right now. Remember, 55 points to A&M, 51 points to Arkansas. And yeah, I mean, that's the most impressive thing to me. Like, we always love offense, which again, offense is a really good offensive team, but it's the way they're defending that I think is the most impressive. And I just feel like they're gonna put all the pressure on Jalen Cook and Jordan Wright. And again, if you take one of those guys away, as we've said before, I just don't know how much consistency there's going to be elsewhere in a game like this. So yeah, it sets up pretty nicely here, I think, for Auburn.
I'm getting flashbacks to Ole Miss, Tennessee here. It's just what it's reminding me of. It's a team that is playing well in LSU on a little bit of a run here after Jalen Cook comes back, and you haven't played a team like Auburn yet. And Blake, you mentioned it. You've mentioned it time and time again how teams' percentages are going to take a little dip here in a conference play, and we've kind of seen that with Jordan Wright, actually, even though he's been playing well. Since Jalen Cook entered the lineup, past 4 games, Jordan Wright is 4 for 20 from 3. And they've been able to get to the free throw line and win with their defense. You're not going to be able to do that at Neville. You're going to need shooting. You're going to need everything. You're going to need a perfect game, near perfect game, pretty much everywhere. And I don't see how they're going to be able to do it. The 40 minutes of defense, Auburn's playing. I mean, they win this game, they know they're top 15 in the country. I mean, they're playing for. This is a huge game for Auburn. Even though you might think like, oh, Auburn's just been rolling and they might take an LSU team lightly here, they're playing for top 15, top 10 in the country here coming up. So there's still a lot on the line for Auburn. They're not going to take this lightly at all. I struggle to find a path to victory for LSU. I really do. This Auburn team looks like just lights out lately.
By the way, I think I forgot to mention that game 5 Central on the SEC network. So that's it for our 4 games, gentlemen.
Love will cloud your head.
Thoughts?
It
will. It is.
Love will sometimes cloud your ability to say, the game times and all that. But just to circle back, Jalen Jones, Texas A&M. He played at A&M several years ago. So I knew, I was like, Jalen Jones, I don't know where that came from. But no, check out everything else on the channel. If you like love, if you like basketball, love and basketball, you can find that here. It was. You can find that here on Southeastern 14. We may live watch that one day. We have a watch along on love and basketball and get Chris's intimate thoughts on all of that. So that may be subscriber only material, but hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. A lot more SEC basketball stuff on the way. Yeah, we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, the show took a turn that I didn't even know was coming, but things happen here.
That's how relationships work.
That's how relationships work. We hope you're in love with us. If you are, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. For Max Barr and Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14, presented by Bet Online.